Welcome to Empower Monday Night Call. My name is Tova Privet, and we're going to go over part 2 of our clarity workshop. So if you haven't watched part 1 and you're watching this on the recording, pause and go watch part 1 with Natalie Borges, and we're getting into part 2 here. So 1 was your identity, your impact statement, and your vision statement. So that should all be squared away by now. And remember, the identity is I'm the kind of person that, or the kind of leader that. Finish that sentence. And impact statements where the I help women blank with the products, and it's 2 to 3 sentences, or I help other women blank with the business. What are you accomplishing? What do you want to be able to say you've helped with? And the vision is more, where do I see myself? And I encourage you to do one like a year from now, 3 years from now, and 5 years from now, because those are really different visions. And you want to have very big, very long-term vision. Go bigger than you think. So whatever you think, what was it? I can't remember. The 10X guy was like, whatever you think, add a 0. And he was like, think in that way, dream in that way. So for core values, you can find them all over the internet, but Brene Brown made that nice list for us that we sent out. And if you're looking for it, it's on the OneDrive or the Google Drive. You can still find it there or Google it. So this is a huge list, and most of you hopefully have gotten it down to less than 15. And our goal today is just to provide some clarity with it. And what we're going to look at is what we feel is the most important. And then we're going to kind of analyze what is our time actually doing? What is our time, effort, energy, money doing versus what we want and what our vision is, and kind of what happens when those things aren't aligned. It will feel like you're really having to put forth a lot of effort to go towards your goals. It will feel like an uphill climb. You'll feel a lot of resistance. So if you've ever thought like, gosh, this seems harder than it should be, this is probably it. And it's not uncommon to have some misalignment here. And it's almost like a budget. If you're setting a budget and then things aren't quite coming out, you're coming out in the red, like something that you're doing and spending is not reflecting the plan you made. So that's kind of the accountability that we're going to do here today. And I want you to know your core values really won't change a lot. I'd say your top 15 probably won't change. However, the prioritization of them over the years will change. Before you had kids, you would have a certain set and prioritize things a certain way. Even I would say when your husband's deployed, you're going to prioritize things a different way versus when he comes home. So be okay with that. But whenever you're having a big life change, at a minimum, like you should really reevaluate, I would say once a year. If you're having a big life change, like your husband deploying or getting married or something, then I would reevaluate. But going longer than a year is probably not good because your priorities have changed. So it's real easy to say, reflect on what is most important in your life. You're like, oh, okay, like, yeah, first, the point is you got to take some time to do it, to be quiet and to be alone and actually think about what matters. What could you strip away? I always do better with the kind of negative side of it, if you want to call it that. Like, what would I be okay with doing without? Sometimes that's an easier approach depending on how your brain works, versus like, what do I want? What do I need? What would I be willing to give up if a lot of things changed? Where could I compromise on and where do I not want to compromise on? Okay, and what have you valued up to this point? So our first question, it really has to do with current values. And you got to ask yourself, what has been the most important to me in my life? So think back on things that hold a lot of weight with you, that you put a lot of time, energy, emotion, effort into. If you don't feel like, I think back to when I first got my flight paramedic certification. That meant a whole lot to me. I spent a lot of time and money on it, a lot of effort. I got up early, I stayed up late, I made a lot of sacrifices, but it was something that mattered to me. So being successful at that mattered to me. Your kids matter to you. You get up in the middle of the night and feed them. You do all sorts of things. You could just set them in front of the TV and walk away, like other parents do that. If you value really connection and parenting with your kids, you're going to spend that time with them, even if you don't feel like it sometimes. So that would be an example of something that you are valuing. So I kind of wrote out like stability is important to me. being really excellent, competent at what I'm doing, making good memories with my kids, not feeling restricted. So just kind of brain dump. Don't worry about the words, just that initial question, what has been the most important to me and really mattered? And it was funny because as I worked my way through a few trainings on this, I left several things off this list that later, as I got deeper, I was like, hold up, that needs to go on my list. And I just hadn't really thought about it. All right, and then kind of step two. So the first big one is you get in that big list, parent it down to 15, and then kind of on an aside and back of your sheet or something, I want you answering that question, things in your life, pivotal things, pivotal moments, what mattered to you? What did you spend more time doing? What were you willing to sacrifice to do? And then I want you to discover what emotion is tied to that, because sometimes we'll say like family is very important to me, but what feeling are you getting with your family because it's important to you? So feeling really connected, feeling really accepted, feeling like you have support. That's the emotion you're seeking. So it's important to get clarity, because some of us can say health, or some of us can say family, or say success. And then when we go down in the emotion and definition of it, it means different things. So again, this is a clarity workshop. So it's just getting extra clarity there. Another one is like my business is really important to me, or money, being financially free is really important to me. You know, actually the feeling that I want is not feeling restricted on decision making. So I want freedom with decision making. It isn't necessarily the money. It's a means to an end. So you kind of need to write that at the top of the page, means to an end. And it will be messy at first. And that initial list that you write, like being successful and my family and stability, a lot of those are the means things. So take it all the way through and go through to what emotion am I actually experiencing and what do I want? And that's kind of our next step to follow. And some of this stuff, like I promise you guys are going to have to spend some time on this after this call. Like I wish we could do it all right here together, but it's too individualized. So really, please set aside 20, 30 minutes for yourself to do this. So write out the sentence, I want to feel ... And I would say at least do 5 points. So what are things you want to feel? So I want to feel free. I put free / not controlled or constrained. You know, I feel like if you don't have financial freedom, that really restricts your choices on a lot of fronts. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel secure. So I don't want to have a lot of unknowns. And so I seek security. Security could come in a lot of different ways. It could come in high communication with my husband. It could come in making more money. It could come in all sorts of things. Our career choice, that's one. The Army doesn't make you feel real safe and secure sometimes with how unpredictable our guys' schedules can be. I want to feel joy. And I would say tied into my joy is I have a big thing where I don't want to feel regret later. So even think of the opposite. What would be the opposite of what you want to feel? Because sometimes our fears are really prominent, and it might be really easy to be like, these are the things I'm afraid of. These are the things I do not want to feel. So what would I need to achieve? What's the opposite side of that coin, that paper? And like, so fear of regret, I would say the opposite of that is being joyful and present in the moment. Because if I can be joyful and present in the moment, then I can be really intentional with what I'm doing with my kids. And it's unlikely I would later have regrets about something. So go through that process. So it's definitely more than one layer. It's an onion, for lack of a better word. If you're struggling to narrow things down, this is kind of an aside that was really helpful to me. What upsets you when it's lacking in other people when it comes to core values? So if something continually really just irks you and upsets you and almost offends you, I find it offensive when certain things are missing in people. Like I literally, if somebody's doing their job that they're paid to do and they're terrible at it, I am so offended by it. Like, how dare you? Like, this is your job. Like, either be good at it or go get another job. So competence is super high up there for me. And like other people, they're like, whatever, they're not good at their job, or they're not all upset by it. But that's a core value for me. And that was a good way to learn it. All right, so once you get through this list where you have, you know, maybe roughly 10, and it's okay if you're in there. What matters more when you get to the 10 ballpark is prioritization. And so here's really where you have to have vision and then brutal honesty. So there's kind of two columns you're going to write. And some of these things are going to line up and some of them aren't. That's why we're doing this workshop. That's why we're doing clarity. I feel like this is so similar to budgeting in lots of ways. If someone doesn't write out their budget, they're like pretty sure they're spending, you know, whatever, $1,000 on food a month. But then when they really track it and really save the receipts, they're spending like $1,300. It's not quite what you thought it was. Our time, our energy, our values are the exact same way. And unfortunately, with the way the world is right now, unless you're intentional with what you're doing with your time and energy and lining them up with your values, your time and energy is often not spent supporting your values. And that will feel misaligned, that will feel disingenuous, that won't feel good. All right, so in one column, you're going to have like ideal scenario. If I value health and fitness, health. If you value health, you're going to get enough sleep. So you're going to write on there, I value health. And then kind of next to it, you're going to write what you're doing currently that proves. So prove it to yourself. Health is really important to me. And I'm like, I don't believe you. Why is health important to you? Show me in your life, show me the money, show me where it's important. Well, if I were to answer that question, I'd say I spend quite a lot of money on supplements that are really high quality and I believe in. And I spend a decent amount of money on gym memberships. I bought a Peloton. I pay a membership to a gym. I sleep every night, a decent amount. I will get up early and prioritize working out. I track my working out. If I don't do my workout early, I'll skip other things to get it in. So here's the thing. If you're saying health is really important to you, but when your business gets busy and your kids get busy and your sleep gets jacked, you skip the workout, it went down. It's not gone, but based on what you're doing, it's a lower priority. Because if it was in essence above family, above business, and I'm not telling you what order they should be in, but if you wrote health number one, that means it literally comes before everything else. You're going to do that no matter what. And I really encourage you, don't like write down what you think, because there's like this invisible social pressure of like, I should have family, faith, and like health written at the top, because that would be the best thing to have written there. Write down what you think, because I did not write down on my first page. I'm looking for what I did with it. I did not write down health initially. Like that's just not something that came to mind when I was like things that matter to me a lot. And then I looked at my day and my money and I was like, obviously health like matters to me a lot, but that didn't come right to the forefront until I looked at it. Competence and growth, that's really important to me. I spend money on coaching programs. I spend money on books. I spend time listening to training videos. If you say growth and personal development and competence is important to you, but you're not really spending much time doing those things, that's okay, but that's just a fact. You now are at a crossroad where you have to decide, okay, I noticed that I would like this to be a priority for me and my actions aren't reflecting it. So I need to decide, is this really not a priority for me? Do I not really value this? Or if I do, like, man, I'm not being true to myself. And then we'll get into kind of what steps you can take to change that. So follow the clock and your money, guys. Look at it. That will tell you what's important. And that's where we tell people all this stuff right now with, yes, I know inflation and cost of living and everything, but guys, there is not this massive wave of people calling Hulu and YouTube to cancel their TV. People aren't doing it. There's not this massive spike in bicycle purchases because people don't want to pay for gas anymore. Like people pay for convenience. People pay for what they want. So if we can, in essence, educate them as to why this is more important than other things, then their money will reflect it. I'm just using that as an example of you assessing your time and your money. What type of food are you buying? if healthy living is really important to you, you shouldn't have a bunch of receipts on there from fast food places. And if you do, just pick, no, it's really not that important to me. Other things are more important, but I'm going to change it. So go through with all your stuff, all your things, that's your core values and the feelings you want to achieve, and then track back your time and your money and see if they're reflecting. And then kind of highlight which ones are misaligned, which ones are aligned, maybe do like green highlighter, and then do like yellow or red for the ones that are misaligned. And, you know, we got to start small. Atomic Habits, Slide Edge, all of them say it. Don't get overwhelmed with like, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to start getting up early. I'm going to start eating different. I'm going to start spending 2 hours a day one-on-one time with my kids, like whatever, all these changes, like makes baby goals. Maybe pick 1 or 2 things to focus on for Q1, and then 1 or 2. Yes, exactly. You got to do baby steps, or else you're naturally going to go to what's comfortable. I don't know if you guys have heard much training on that, but literally your lower brain seeks comfort, avoids discomfort, and seeks pleasure. Like that's all it's going to do. It doesn't understand the hierarchy of your goals and your vision statement and your values. And so it's just going to, in the short term, seek what is easiest. And most of the time, that is not in alignment with what we want long term. So it's okay if it seems a little bit hard. I've given a few examples. I wanted to make sure I hit on all of them because there's a few examples that really stood out to me and some stuff I was reading. We went over kind of the family one versus the business one, health versus success. And we said that will you skip a workout to do a business event or vice versa? And both of those things are important. So you should find a way, in essence, to prioritize both of them. And where do you see? So with the vision stuff, I see myself in, 2023 and 26, 5 years from now, and 28. In essence, we've done this before with like writing a letter to your future self, or when you were Diamond, like what would you write to yourself now? There's a few ways to do this, but envisioning your future self. And I would think through like, what kind of values does she have? What does her morning routine look like? Does she have a morning routine? Like there's a lot of research on how important morning routines are. That's part of your health and can really affect a lot of other goals. So if reaching your goals is really important, then you should prioritize your morning routine. That should be in your value system. So there's definitely more than one step to getting to your value system. Placing the top 5, 10 in the right order, I think is important. And it's a little bit of I don't even know what analogy to use. You're going to have to go through and do the thing like, prove it to me with each of them. Show me when you put 2 side by side, show me which one matters more and why. And then one will move above. And then you have to do it with the next one. And so now you have 3 to compare. Show me which one goes in what order and why. If you were to have to write down on paper to prove to me they should go in this order, why? And you have to do this twice. You have to do this once with what you would like it to be, and then once with what's actually happening. And it's going to take some time to play with it. And then once you see your order, then we're going to, in essence, make your day and make your action to make your habits off of that. So your habits are your values. I know it's not always great, but your habits are reflecting your current values. That doesn't mean that's what you want. That doesn't mean it's your goals or your identity or your mission statement or your impact. It's just what your current values are. And we can change that. That's what's great. All right. Decisions made through the lens of desired values will lead you to a desired vision. So as you're making these decisions with what you want to keep and what you want to let go of, you should have your vision kind of in your mind's eye of, is this decision pointing me in the right direction? Is this moving me? Because guys, you can make all sorts of things important. You can justify all sorts of things. There's 1,000 good things you could do in the day that anyone would say is good. And they're not, very few of them are going to support your long-term vision and your long-term goals and long-term values. So you must constantly be grading, what am I doing? If you struggle with people pleasing, You might be doing a lot of things to keep other people happy that don't support your goals and your vision. And that's something you got to work on. And we'll get to that with boundaries. This was a good analogy. So think of just something separate. I think your kids or your spouse, when you were really in love with someone, like even think back to the beginning, you know, when you were willing to do all these things for your spouse, but now you might be like, you can do that for yourself. You're fine. So what do you do for someone who you're really in love with and you care about so much? You'll stop doing something you're in the middle of to have a conversation with them when they're upset. Like, even if it's very inconvenient and I had plans to do something else, if someone needs me and they're really upset and they matter to me, I'm going to stop doing and rearrange my day to help them right then. My kids, like, I love and value my kids. If my kids get sick or they need something, like, my day is going to be rearranged. That is a reflection of a value, and something I habitually do. But also, like, that doesn't mean your kid should overtake every single other one unless you're willing to compromise on every single other one. And it's okay to have more than one at the top. And that's where I was saying, don't let any like social norms or social judgment like convince you, because if you're writing them in the hierarchy that you think they should be versus what you really feel, you're going to stay misaligned and it's going to continue to feel hard. And really, the more clarity you get, the easier this should feel. You should be able to be leaned into it and pulled by it. That doesn't mean there's no effort, but it shouldn't feel like all this resistance. All right, living your values is your daily habits. We said that. Trying to make sure I covered everything. So kind of the steps are narrowing your values, answering the value questions, writing down your current versus your vision ones. And then I would go off to the side of the contradicting ones and write small actions. And just like we map out ranks, I would do that. Like, okay, if you really want to have a handle on this in 11 months, what do you think that might look like in 9 months, 6 months, and 3 months? Like, what is that divided by 4? If you want to be working out 6 days a week, like and you don't really work out at all consistently, maybe start with doing 2 workouts a week consistently. And then that shows you are taking steps and prioritizing time because you're valuing your health. So little baby changes like that. Boundaries. The only way to be able to achieve these things and maintain these things are going to be boundaries. You have to set boundaries. We do it anyway. We're just not always intentional about it. And you have to be self-aware and you have to reflect. If you just burn through your days and crash at night and get up in the morning and just kind of reactionary, going with the kids, going with everything, you're never going to have time to really be self-aware as to what you're feeling, and then taking the time to reflect on it. You're not going to see the trends. So that's what you in essence should be seeking to discover, is what are trends. And I think any extreme emotion is a good thing to track, even just in a notes memo thing in your phone. If you're really happy and having a lot of fun and losing track of time, like, I would notate, what are you doing? That's probably something associated with a high value thing, or maybe you should consider making that high value if it brings you a lot of joy, assuming I want to feel joyful, I want to feel happy, I want to feel carefree. If that's in one of your top feelings you're seeking, track that. And then real easy to track the opposite. Notate when you're not feeling happy, when you're not. Is there something that's tied to that? Is there a certain activity, certain type of people, certain time of the day, certain something that's continually tied to that? And then I would start looking at, do I have any action steps I can take to minimize that? Number one question, can you stop doing it altogether? There's a lot of things. The book Essentialism, I'm getting ready to read, and I've heard a lot of good things about it, but there's a lot of things they say, like, you can write out your whole to-do list, prioritize it, and then just like scratch off the bottom 20% and delete it. Like, very few things would fall apart in your life if you deleted the bottom of your list. So you got to think of that. Can I eliminate it? Can I outsource it, like delegate it? There's certain things I hate doing that irritate me, put me in a bad mood. I let my husband handle them, or I pay someone to handle them where you can't. Some things you can't get around. So then you need to look at, when am I doing that? So guys, like, laundry is not maybe to Courtney, a clean house is a high value, but for most of us, laundry and like a straight house is probably not in the top 5. It's important, like, to have some peace and not live in chaos. But what we would like in a perfect world in heaven where there's no dust and our houses are always clean, is not where we live. So my husband will call me on this, because in the morning sometimes, like peak performance hours, I'll be straightening stuff and like doing laundry. And he's like, this is not a good use of your energy, time, and resources right now. Like there's other things that matter to you more. So make sure you're putting the things that matter less in your low functioning parts of the day. That's a boundary with yourself. So here's an example of a self boundary where I won't allow myself to do certain low output activities in certain high output times of the day. So finding when your best time of the day is to function should be tied to doing the most important activities. And then your worst part of the day, where you're tired, run down, low energy, irritated, that should be tied to your low output activities. And often we are all jumbled. Like I am guilty of it too, because it feels good to get easy wins. So you'll insert the real low energy activities into your high energy time, because it just feels good to get an easy win. Like at least I folded the laundry, like, oh, I'm not total mess today. And sometimes you got to do that, but that is a choice. So that's a value choice for that day at that moment. And boundaries with other people. So if your business is really important to you, you might need to set up some boundaries with your family. That doesn't mean you're making one over the other, choosing one over the other, and don't let people say you are. But Brad knows Monday nights and Thursday nights, there's a hard boundary there. Like unless we're taking someone to the hospital, like, and do we both really need to be in the hospital? No, I'm just kidding. That is a priority to me. That's it. He never even asks or suggests anything different. He never asked me to help with bedtime on those nights. Like he knows I've communicated that. So you have to communicate that. That's a big one. And you might need to communicate that more than once. No one's going to take your business as seriously as you do. So of course, they're not going to understand things as clearly as we do. And that's everything. And I would go through this stuff with your spouse, because some of your values are going to overlap and some of them aren't. And you can kind of leverage that. If having a really happy marriage and love-filled marriage is a high value, you want to feel love. Like, how much time are you spending on your marriage? How many books are you reading on your marriage? Are you doing Bible studies together? Like, what does your time reflect? And that one for me was like, oh, like, yeah, of course I want that. That's a huge priority. Like we are not pouring lots of time into that. Life has been pulling us at all these other ways. So that's something I want to invest more in 2023 and align more of matching my feet and my mouth. So that's really what it comes down to. We're up against a wall. I did a lot of talking. Hopefully you guys were writing as we went and can fill this out. If you need any more clarity on any of the sections, we can help work through that. And I think this stuff is really good to work through on coaching calls, because you're coming with data. You can be like, this is where I've got it narrowed down to, and this is what I think. And just an outside perspective can be helpful. All right, guys, let's hop on the Pink Power call, and I'll see you next week.